What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Power Rankings, guys. As always, I'm Paul. I'm here with Joe.
Hi, everyone.
And we're excited to jump back in. It's been a crazy 2 weeks in Survivor Michigan.
It definitely has. I had this weird nightmare that Andrew was rocked out at a crazy game changer style tribal council. Did that actually happen?
I don't know. If it didn't, he was really under-edited this week. Wow. I mean, what an insane episode that was.
It was, I think my jaw was literally on the floor the entire time, especially during that tribal. It got heated, it got personal, there was passion, there was, Andrew's scenarios and his percentages that I lost track of. It was just, what an insane episode. I mean, they said it was going to be dramatic, and we definitely got that.
It definitely delivered. I couldn't believe what was going on as we were watching it. It was exciting. It was weird. It was kind of mean at points. It was very I was very much taken aback by the whole of it. It was definitely you definitely see that sort of I don't want to use the word tribalism necessarily, but that sort of defensiveness come up even this early in a season of Survivor. I mean, Tribal Council number 3.
Right. Yeah. And I think it just shows how close each tribe has gotten this quickly, especially with Savu Savu being so close. And I feel like they're, sort of that group of super fans, and, with Tafiti just not wanting to budge on anything. And it sounded like they didn't even really want to have any conversations with them. It was just an interesting dynamic to watch. And I feel like you could kind of watch it through a couple different lenses. Like you could watch it through, an entertainment lens. Yeah. But then you could watch it through sort of like a super fan lens where you're like, you don't want to see, one tribe just kind of cut off the other tribe and not, want to do anything with them or talk with them at all. And it was very polarizing, and just wild.
I totally agree. I think that I think the first time you watch it, it's just crazy to internalize it. But the second time I watched it, it's definitely more brutal because you even see Andrew at the beginning of the episode. He's almost teasing Austin a little bit. He's he's got a Survivor blog. That's not surprising. And that kind of stuff. And talking about I never go to rocks. He's talking about how we're all a family and blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of the episode, he's the one saying I can't do this to Austin. I have to go to rocks. I'm willing to do that. It's just this really beautiful evolution for him. And if you got to go out in episode 3, that's the way to do it, is to go out leaving that kind of impact, leaving the fans wanting more. Dare we say wanting more?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, if he's not at the top of the list for a returning season in the future, then I don't know what's going on. But we definitely need more Andrew. 100%.
Definitely agree. And then that episode segued us into this week's episode, which was just, I feel like I have no idea it's so funny because last time we were here, we were talking about, it's all about duos. We got all these duos in the game and these people. And after this week's episode, I have no idea who's even working together or who's loyal to each other, what the sort of setup is in this game right now.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I mean, I'm glad that we got a swap and we're down to 2 tribes now. I think that was the perfect time to do that. And the way it was working out at first, I love that they had to get into duos, but then those duos would be split. I thought that was a really cool idea. But the way that it worked out where I think it was Tormenta kept kind of staying on the same tribe and Tafiti, but then it was just Ben. I think it was Ben and Chloe are the only 2 that are sort of in the minority on the opposite tribe now. So I thought that was really interesting. Ben screaming, "I got bamboozled." I've been bamboozled. That was perfect.
I do. Yeah, I think these tribes are interesting, and I know we're going to dig into it a little bit when we get into the power rankings, but I have some thoughts on Ben this week.
Same,
Good.
same.
Okay.
So I'm sure we'll cover that. Um,
Uh,
yeah, but it was again another great episode. I mean,
hmm
the double fake idol play, that tribal again was just so crazy. I don't know. This season's really delivering in
It
ways that we probably couldn't even have imagined
it
before it
really
started.
is. I totally agree. I think Eliza being able to pull off that move and then her telling Ben that her idol was fake, but then having a real idol that she played and forcing his idol to be played. Yeah, it was really, really good. And also, rest in peace, Sarah,
I
who was
know.
the definitely a weird choice, I think, for Eliza and Devin there.
Yeah, I kind of
Or
thought that too
Eliza.
because I
I'm
was
always
like,
calling her Eliza.
oh, it's
Like,
okay. Yeah, Lisa.
yeah.
Yeah, I kind of thought the same thing. I like going into that, I was like, okay, it's gonna be either Dylan. I figured it would probably be maybe Cassie,
Mm-hmm.
just with everything that happened in the trouble before. But then I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this would be a great opportunity to take out like a big player like Dylan or Brady. And with, I don't think Eliza knows that Brady has an idol, right? So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, how crazy would it be that like two fake idols were played, two real idols are played, but then Brady goes home with an idol in his pocket. Not saying that I necessarily wanted that to happen, but I just felt like it was leading up to like a huge player going out again.
Yeah,
Not
and
saying that Sarah wasn't a big player, but I felt like there were bigger targets that they could have taken out
totally
at
agree.
that tribal.
And how
So
does Brady sit on that idol there, especially knowing, I mean, because the Tormenta people, the or Brady, Sarah, Cassie, and Dylan, they split their votes between Ben and Eliza. So
right,
once Ben and Eliza both play idols, how does Brady not play his there? Like, how does he have the guts
yeah,
to sit on that?
right. That was a huge risk, and right because I mean, unless there was more that we didn't see,
Mm-hmm.
but and he maybe kind of knew it wouldn't be him, but
Yeah,
uh, yeah, that was crazy too. I was really kind of half expecting him to stand up and just play his. Just why not be make sure you're safe? But I don't know, and I just think it's really interesting. And I'm sure we'll talk about this, but just like this Ben and Brady thing that we've been seeing, and now
mm-hmm.
Ben got votes. It's I don't know. Things are all over the place. Like so much has changed just in the last episode. It's crazy.
I
It's
totally
craziness.
agree. Yeah, I think everything is up in the air at this point in the game, which is
Hmm.
exactly where you want to be 4 episodes in.
Right, right.
All right, so let's get into some power rankings. It's a mess. Honestly, I'm just going to start out by saying that I have really no idea where we are because a lot of I mean, of the people that we really liked last week, Andrew is gone now.
I know he definitely
Um,
he had like a permanent spot on my top five for the rest of the game. So with him being out now, it's kind of like okay, what do we do now?
I totally agree. And then two names that we had last week that I think I don't know if you still have or have had a bit of a fall from grace, but Ben and Will. Um,
They
I
are not in my top five.
I don't have Ben or Will in my top five either, which is why I wanted to bring them up. Ben had kind of a crazy week this week.
Hmm.
Um, I first of all, I'm gonna throw a little shade on the podcast. So this tribe has Brady, Dylan, Ben, Devin, Sarah, Cassie, and Eliza.
Hmm.
How in the world do they lose at Steal the Bacon?
That's a great, yeah, that's a great
To a team
point.
of Chloe, Austin, the two Emilys, Aaron, Jesse, and Will.
Right. That's yeah.
How do they not 7-0 the other? Like, I know Ben is mad that they're not throwing the challenge, but like they should not have needed to throw that challenge.
Yeah, that's a good point. But give it up for new Tormenta for just like
Super credit to them. Huge credit to Challenge Beast Austin.
right.
Am I reading that right? This is 2 weeks in a row now, or excuse me, not 2 weeks in a row, but 2 weeks ago with the balancing the cup challenge on the plate.
Hmm.
He has a good week there, and then
Right.
again 2 weeks later in Steal the Bacon, he's
Yeah.
dominant.
that was a great moment, and just don't you can't underestimate anyone in this game. I think that's what's so great about Survivor is just you just never know.
I totally agree.
And maybe that like super stretchy tire kind of worked in Tormenta's favor for some reason. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, the
Uh,
stretchy tire. I've played Steal the Bacon a lot in my life, and I've never seen anything that stretchy used. But I think it's an interesting wrinkle. I think Aaron just pulling it as far as she can and then just sitting on it. I think
right.
was a good strategy there. I
Yeah,
like that.
right. I think they definitely used it to their advantage, for sure. So I'm interested to hear kind of if we get an origin story of that tire. But yeah, I think that is a good point. Like new Tafiti, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, definitely has some strength there, but so yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they
a great
couldn't put
point to
it
bring up.
together though,
No.
and Ben, I don't know. I think Ben just I think he got thrown off by the whole
Hmm.
situation. I think he went into it sort of feeling like, okay, I'm in trouble, and I think he just sort of spiraled this week. He gave us some of the best confessionals of the game so far.
Absolutely.
I mean, just
Yeah.
absolute. I'm trying to scroll back and see him being completely compromised. I'm completely compromised is so good. His imitation of Will, although harsh, was I mean so good, just spot on.
Yeah.
And yeah, he just totally spirals out of control. He's very mad at Eliza at tribal council for reasons that I
Hmm.
don't even know that I fully understand. He's having a tough time, but he survives down
Right.
an idol. So he found the idol, had to play it, but he does survive.
Right. Which is
And
good.
then it's very good. And so yeah, and also Will. I have to say I have written down in my notes. Stop calling Will old. Challenge 2020. That scene from 2 weeks ago where they're sitting around and I can't remember who it is, whether it's Aaron or Jesse or who it is, looks at me and is like, "Do you even know what Twitter is?" And it's like, "Okay, guys, all right, come
That's so
on."
funny.
But yeah, I think both of them. I think they are stronger together. So I hope they can repair this rift.
Right. That's what I was thinking too. Like the swap really um sent the course of their game in just a completely different path than it had been. And I think, it's I was thinking that earlier, like it's the next like episode or two are really going to be huge for them both to kind of see how they recover from this because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like with kind of the way like I love Will the way that he's playing it is I don't know if it's like overplaying or like they were saying I think Emily said he doesn't kind of talk with us, he talks at us. And even
Yeah.
the way he was kind of talking with Eliza and being like, you're not going to screw me, right? You're not going to backstab me. Like,
Yeah.
just very interesting approach to the game. So with his kind of name being thrown out there a little bit more this episode on his new tribe, and then Ben just being in a crappy position on his side, it is going to be really interesting to see how the two of them kind of recover from this swap and where their games go from there.
I think it's funny. I was thinking this week. I think season one we had Matthew pre-merge, just doing all sorts of stuff, playing big,
Mm-hmm.
doing stuff. Last season we had Kevin pre-merge, the Kevin like doing all this stuff, giving
Mm-hmm.
these snarky confessionals. This season it's like everybody's like Matthew and Kevin. Like the whole cast is like
Right.
Matthew and just playing hard, giving these really either super strategic, thoughtful statistics confessionals or these incredibly biting, like critical confessionals. It's This is a great cast,
It is. It
but they're
really
making
is.
it very difficult to do our job, which is power rankings.
I know. And I couldn't even, like, I wrote down five names, but I couldn't even put numbers to them because I'm just like, I don't even know who I would make number one, number two, number three, number four, number five. I have a question mark next to one person. So,
I agree. I figured that was what we would do here.
but it is making it more fun. Like, I actually
Totally.
like that it's more ambiguous than maybe,
Is not then us being just like Jack, Jack,
right.
number one.
Mallory,
Like,
Mallory,
Mallory,
Mallory.
we love you. Post merge, we think you might win.
Right.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
so
let's
it's
jump
definitely a
into
more
them.
interesting podcast. All right. I am still loving Brady this week.
So he's on my top 5. I do have a question mark next to him. But yes, I mean, I think he's still in a good spot. I don't know if I feel like the way that he handled this tribal though maybe could have been a little bit better.
Agreed.
I think they should have just split the votes between Devin and Eliza and just hope that one of them wasn't telling the truth. I mean, I know it's easier to say that from my couch, but
sure.
I feel like with that, and then also, I mean, I guess he couldn't have targeted anyone on his original Tafidi tribe. Mm-hmm. So, it's unfortunate that it was Ben that he had to kind of like sort of cut ties with. But I think he has his idol, which is good. He still has a lot of allies in the game. I think the reason why I put a question mark is because, what's that saying? It's like, hell hath no fury, like a Ben scorn. I feel like Ben could really just blow up Brady's game in the next episode or two. Ben knows he has an idol and all of that. So I think that's kind of why I have a question mark next to Brady, because I'm not sure. It's really just kind of like depending on what happens in the next episode or two,
I totally agree.
And how much Ben could sort of destroy his game if he chooses to do that.
I think Ben is definitely going to try and go scorched earth, but I still think Brady, Cassie, Dylan are still going to stick together if that group has to go to tribal council again. I think they're good, and he has the idol.
Right.
I agree with you. I'm not sure. I guess in Brady's situation, if you really, really believe the Eliza Dylan play, I guess you have to split the votes onto Ben. But even then, I think it's a better situation, almost like the Three Amigos Tribal Council in Caramoan, where you're like, you know what, we're just going to do this. We're going to split the votes this way, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. And he has that the Brady Bunch alliance too.
Yes.
There's still that. I'm assuming that cross. What is it? Tor Feedy alliance. I think that they're calling it. So he definitely still has a lot of numbers in the game. It really is just going to depend on, kind of what happens in the next couple episodes with these new tribes. And yeah, so he's definitely in my top 5. I just have a question mark just because who the heck knows what could happen in the next episode or two.
It's totally true. Also, I'm never that crazy when the alliance is named after you. I think that's I think that's a big red flag. All right. Who do you got?
So the first person that I did write down is actually Jesse.
Yes, Jesse.
I am loving Jesse. I think if we wanted to create like the Mallory Award for somebody who kind of comes into the game, doesn't really know much about it. She's a freshman. Like, I think she's playing super, super well. I think she kind of got herself in better with the sort of Ben, Will, Emily P alliance, and just the way that she's reading the game. I absolutely loved the scene of her and Will in the car, and Will is getting all these texts from Eliza, and Jesse is just like, oh, like, what do you think of Savu Savu? And Will is just like, oh, I haven't talked, like, just those things. Like, I feel like her read on the game, I know we've said this before, but her read on the game and on people is just so...
It's true.
Extraordinary. So she's 1000% on my power rankings list. I'm really, really enjoying her play this game.
I totally agree. I think if there's one thing we've learned in the last couple orbits of College Survivor in general, it's that Survivor knowledge isn't necessarily a huge deal. Like, it's not necessarily a deal breaker knowing a lot about Survivor, which I hope, I think that's what makes the game so exciting. And I think that's why College Survivor right now feels so fresh and fun, is because it feels like those early seasons of CBS Survivor, where like you have some fans, but then some totally new people. Some people are learning the game on the fly. And I think it feels very fresh, very fun, very innovative. And that's where you get these kind of wild tribal council plays and these sort of good moves and then really bad moves and then inexperienced moves. I think Jessie is in a great spot. I think her instincts are good. I absolutely agree with you about the Mallory Award. I think her ceiling is so high. Like, she has only room to get better. But I do have a question.
Okay.
What does sexy doesn't float mean?
I saw that too. I was hoping we would get like an explanation. I don't know if we're on, if we're being willed right now and we're just like too old to
Yeah,
understand if that's
yes, I
like
think
some
that's
sort
what
of
this
like,
is.
you know, Generation Z thing.
It's
But
like how many C's are in thick? I don't know. Sexy is there like we're putting that out into the Survivor Michigan universe. If somebody knows what sexy doesn't float means, can you please add us on Twitter? Because we do know what Twitter is. Can you please add us on Twitter or find some other way to get a hold of us and just let us know? I have no idea.
Yeah, that's a great question. I had no idea what that was either. So
Yeah,
again, loving that there's always something new behind Jesse and her confessionals.
so
But
good.
yeah, we'll have to we might need a little explanation on that for sure.
Absolutely. Alrighty. I speaking staying on that tribe, I like Emily P.
I have her on my list as well.
I feel like we talked about her as an under the radar person last week a little bit, and
Hmm.
now I think she's getting a little bit more on the radar. Like
Yeah,
I
I
think she's
agree.
playing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, especially with this swap, I think she's actually in a really good spot.
Mm-hmm.
She's got options. I think she was talking about, possibly working with Austin, either going that way or not. And I think, she's kind of seeing kind of more about how Will is playing. There's
Mm-hmm.
also this thing with Erin, which
Mm-hmm.
we still don't have like a full backstory on that, on why a lot of people like want to target her.
Yeah, I
You
don't.
know,
Everything we see from Erin, she seems delightful. And I guess
right?
maybe that's just the way she reads on camera, or maybe that's like her in confessional. But I don't know. And it does give a little bit like I hate using this phrase because I think it tends to be pejorative and misogynistic. But it does give a little bit of like this Mean Girls thing, like, and it does sort of give credence to kind of the way that discussion's been going this
Mm,
season. But and again, Mean Girls is like a misogynistic way to frame that because the most biting confessionals this week came from Ben,
right.
and if not from Ben, then from Will. So it's not like it doesn't just have a monopoly for the ladies in the game, but it does kind of give this sort of like it's sort of like Jesse was talking about last week in another confessional that I loved, giving sort of like this pretty people
mm, yes.
confessional. It gave me very big Siona vibes of like, how many times are we going to let these people, except instead of Phil and Chris, it's Brady and Dylan. Just sub them
Right.
right in. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I
I love
think
that.
I think Emily is in this sort of great middle ground position of like
Hmm.
she's in between sort of this Brady Bunch and Torfiti thing, but she's also got relationships with Aaron and Jesse and some of these other people. I think she's in a really really good spot.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I also think that if Eliza and Devin had been on that tribe trying to
Mm-hmm.
play that fake double idol thing, I think Emily especially and the rest of Tormenta, I don't think they would have fallen for it. I think
Totally agree.
they would have still split the votes between the two of them and tried to call their bluff. So I think it's interesting how that worked out. But yeah, Emily is on my list for sure. I think she's in a good spot with the swap, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few episodes.
Totally agree. All right, who's next?
I have Eliza, of course.
Yes,
I
I agree.
think she's going to be on in the top five,
Mm-hmm.
unless she makes a major blunder in the next few episodes. I feel like she'll be on there for a while. But yeah, I think just her, because she came up with this idea, right, for the two fake idols and using Austin. Thank God Austin got that advantage,
Yeah.
because they pulled that into the strategy of like, okay, he's able to give an idol to someone. I think she just played that whole thing really well. She's super social, as we've been saying. She has this connection with Will, which is still be interesting to see, because they didn't end up on a tribe together. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see that play out if they're both in the merge or whatever. But yeah, she's playing great. She's bringing the energy. Her confessionals are great. I think it's. I keep saying this, but it's kind of like it's really going to depend on what happens in the next episode or two, because
Mm-hmm.
she's now played an idol, come up with this plan. Like, I feel like her target keeps increasing, so it's going to be it'll be interesting to see kind of how she navigates that in the next couple episodes.
Yeah, it's sort of like the spirit of Alex Tarowski has like
Mm-hmm.
possessed Eliza, and now she's just what I want to see her do is exactly what Alex did, which is just lean into it. Like
Right.
you're the biggest target in the game at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. There's no doubt about it. So don't try and go back under the radar. Don't try and play subtle again. Just lean into it. You're the biggest target in the game, so go hunt for there's going to be two idols rehidden, go or at least one you'd think rehidden, go hunt
Right.
for that, play the game, do whatever you have to do. But yeah, I mean I think she's great. I wrote down that Eliza and Will are kind of like work spouses, like that person at work that you're like, is like always sort of like making eye contact with during stupid work meetings or stuff like that.
Yes,
Like I feel
absolutely.
like that's or Eliza and Will. Like I don't even know that they have like even that much in common or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, or that they're even, but they just have that total work spouse vibe. So I love it. Aliza is great TV. I'm so glad she's here. Um, I love her in this game. Like every time she's on screen, it's just great energy, whether it's in confessional or she's meeting with people. She's working,
Mm-hmm.
she's hustling. I love it.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree.
All right. I got to do it. I want to talk about Austin.
Okay. Awesome.
Um, I think he is in such a strange position
Mm-hmm.
in that I think he's in that Cochrane spot where he's like such an obvious target that I don't think anybody has any plans to target him.
Yeah, and I think was it Will that was talking about it? How like, you know, he was like everybody loves Austin. Like he's
Yeah.
so endearing and he's a super fan and I feel like you can't not like Austin. So
Yes.
it's right. If he goes deep in the merge, he could definitely have a run for it. I didn't have him on my top five, but he was sort of hovering around like the sixth spot.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, I think with the swap, I think um he's probably in a better position than maybe he was
Mm-hmm.
before that. And I
Totally.
think it's really going to be interesting. I keep saying that. Count how
It's
many
true
times I've
though.
said the word interesting in this podcast. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of where things go on the new Tormenta tribe, especially if they lose the next tribal. Because like we've heard Aaron's name a lot, we kind of heard Austin's name a little bit, and Will had an interesting. There it is again. Will had a confessional about Austin about something about like not being able to trust him because he'll stand up and tell everybody everything. So I don't know what
I didn't
that
know where
was.
that came from.
Yeah, I
Cause
don't know if
like,
that was a part of if something maybe leaked from like the tribal before.
yeah, because Will wasn't even at that tribal.
Yeah, so I hope we get a little bit more backstory on what that meant. Uh
Yeah.
but yeah, I think if he plays the next few rounds right, I think he could definitely, make a good run for it for sure.
I totally agree. He's got the extra vote, which
Mm-hmm.
I like. I mean, extra votes in Survivor in general haven't always been like the best. And I love that it's the Maggie parchment, the one that Jack
That
wrote
was
Maggie on.
yeah, I loved seeing that. That was
Such a
perfect.
great like Ghost Island style throwback. And
Mm-hmm.
also, if you had to pick two people in the entire canon of College Survivor who were more different, would you pick Austin and Maggie?
Oh, 100%.
Can you imagine more polar opposite people? I would love to see those two in some sort of, if there's some sort of amazing race scenario, or even just
Oh
like,
wow, yeah.
let's get Austin and Maggie to do an escape room and film it or something. Now that we've seen them associated in the canon of College Survivor, I'm just like,
Hmm.
I need to see them collaborate on some sort of project,
Oh,
because I cannot
definitely.
imagine two more East and West people and two more people who are more fun on camera than the two of them. So
Right.
that's a total sidebar. But yeah, I think Austin's in a good spot, and I think hopefully he's just going to continue to kind of ride this beautiful soul edit into the merge, and
Hmm.
then sneak up on some people. Because
Yeah.
I think he's the kind of person where if he gets to the end, I think it's one of those things where you're like, well, you got to give it up to him. We
Right.
knew he was the super fan from day one, and we never got rid of him. So
Absolutely. I mean, and he was almost gone in episode one, so it's like
yeah,
he would have a really great story to share at the end. So I totally
agreed.
agree with that.
All right, who else you got?
So the other person I had that's sort of a question mark is Dylan.
I had Dylan to round out my list as well.
Okay, so we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like still haven't heard much from him. Still love the little snippets of confessionals, and I think what
Oh
was
yeah.
interesting that I noticed was the confessional that they were showing him kind of talk a little bit more about that was in this episode seemed to be the one that they were using the snippets
Yeah, all the
for in the
cutscenes
beginning.
from.
So I was like, wow, like has he just like not done a confessional in like almost a month?
Yeah.
Besides that kind of one that he had outside for a little bit. So I thought that was real interesting because I was like, oh, he's in
Mm-hmm.
that same jacket, the same hat with the same angle. And I was like, oh, wait a second, this might be from that. So I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, I feel like he's like quiet. You know, he's got some numbers. I know he was kind of close to Sarah, right? So I think losing that ally,
Mm-hmm.
definitely hurts his game a little bit. But I feel like, his name has come up a little bit, but I feel like with such bigger, sort of louder personalities, he could easily slip under the radar and, before you know it, he's,
Totally
late
agree.
in the merge.
Sort of like in that, almost like in that Fabio lane
Mm-hmm.
of kind of like he's super likable, funny, charming. Like, why would you ever have any reason to target him?
Right.
Like, and I think especially like the idea that he survived, like that Eliza and Devin vote for Sarah instead of Dylan this week, when by all intents and purposes they probably should have voted for Dylan. I
Yeah.
think bodes really well for him because I think if he can survive sort of a random, sort of almost like in that Will Wall spot too from Millennials versus Gen X of like, if you can sort of survive like the random wild, he could really make a
Mm-hmm.
deep run and who knows?
Right. Yeah, I think we've yet to see a lot from him, so I'm
And
excited to
I think
see.
he has not made a mistake yet. Whereas
True.
with a lot of these other people, they've done good things, but there's also like, oh, there's some red flags. I think Dylan hasn't really done anything that good yet, aside from build relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't think he's really made any mistakes yet. So I
Yeah.
think I think I like Dylan. I'm
Yeah.
in. I'm in.
Same. Perfect. So it looks like so that kind of rounds out our 5 to 6
Yeah, it's
power
every week it's
rankings
our top
there.
six.
But yeah, I will say it was very tough for me to exclude Ben and Will from the top
I
5. But
know.
again, like we've said, I just think with the swap, you know, it's almost like I'm kind of even looking more at them than each of the two Sabu Sabu members on each,
Yeah.
because I feel like their games have just been like flipped upside down just in one episode. So,
I
you
feel
know,
like Will especially is in a weird spot
mm-hmm,
on that tribe.
yeah,
With Ben, I'm banking. I think Ben just had a bad week. Like I think for
yeah,
whatever reason, I think it started with the swap in the challenge, and I think he just sort of it's sort of like when you play poker. I'm a poker player, and it's
mm-hmm,
sort of like when you play poker and you have one bad beat. Sometimes you'll lose all your chips in the next 5 hands because you're just
yeah,
angry and you just end up throwing it all away. I think Ben is not that kind of player. I think Ben is going to have a real bad week like he did this week, and then
mm-hmm.
I think he's going to take a deep breath and recover. But he does have to drop out of the power rankings for this week, unfortunately.
Yeah, that and believe me, I want Ben and Will back in the
Oh, I
power
mean,
rankings for
we
sure.
are
So,
outspoken about our love for Will and with the importance of representation on College Survivor for those of us who are not 20 something pretty
right.
people, as Jesse would say. So I think that's important. But yeah, again, Will, I think with Ben and Will, it's just tightening up the game a little bit. And maybe they need a reunion. Like they need to just get back together,
Right.
work it out, and then we'll be good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Did we have anything else we wanted to comment on before we move on to our special rankings?
I think I'm good.
Okay, perfect. So, as everybody knows, every other week when Paul and I do this, we're going to be kind of pulling in sort of different rankings or whatever we want to call it. But Sarah on the podcast said that there's $1 million prize up for grabs if anyone can guess who we're going to stick with final 3 on this one, but
Mm-hmm.
So apparently it's just going to be that wild. So Paul and I thought it'd be a good idea to just kind of come up with a couple different final three predictions slash scenarios that we thought would be fun to see play out. So we'll go through them now and just talk about them quickly. So
Absolutely.
do you want to start?
Yes, I think I will start because I am trying to think of who in this game would be the least likely three people to end up. And so my
Mm-hmm.
first thought with who the absolute least likely three people to end up in the finals would be Ben, Aaron, and Chloe. Can you
Interesting.
imagine
Okay.
what would have to happen in this game for these
Wow.
three people, specifically Ben and Aaron, but also for Chloe, to put aside their differences and somehow end up in the final three together?
Yeah, that would be a wild final three for sure. And
I
it would be like, yeah, right. Where did that even come from?
I feel like what would have to happen for Ben and Aaron to end up in the final three together? I think
Mm-hmm.
it would potentially make the most interesting end game of all time. And so I definitely Ben and Aaron and Chloe was high on my list of totally rando what in the world kind of magic would have to happen for that to happen. But I would you not love to see the three of them going at each other at a final tribal?
Oh, that would be the most explosive final tribal we've probably seen in a long time.
Yes,
So
it would be,
definitely.
especially with the makeup, how this jury is already looking like it's going to make up. It
Mm-hmm.
would be bananas. So that
Absolutely.
would be, I would be in for those fireworks.
Okay, cool. I like that one. All right. So keeping with that theme of like three random people, so I was like, this season is mazed and confused. So maybe they're
Hmm.
just pulling a complete blindside on the entire audience. And maybe the three people that we've seen the least of end up in the final
Oh.
three. So the first one that I had was Aaron, Devin, and Emily B as the final three.
Oh, okay.
Because
That
I feel
would be
like,
wild.
right? So I feel like just going off of the edit, uh, I feel like those three, and you could probably throw Dylan in there too,
Hmm.
as sort of who we've kind of seen the least of maybe so far. So I think seeing those three in the final three would be just a huge, just sort of like WTF moment. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I kind of went with that. Like maybe just the editing has been amazing this season, but I think it would be really
Hmm.
funny if sort of like the people that kind of started out kind of slow in the beginning just kind of rise up at the end of the game and they're in the final three. So
I totally agree. I took my first Devon note this week through 4 episodes, and the note
mm.
is, and I quote, Devon has a PBR.
that was such a great moment.
That's my first Devon note. First of all, so funny. Good for you, Devon. Your first moment was a legitimate laugh. So you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I like it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give it up for him. Yes, that would be a very surprising final three. That
right. And
is
it's like, and
for
I feel like we
sure.
don't even have that much information yet where it would be like, who would even win of those three? So,
Yeah, I have
you
no
know,
idea. It would definitely be close. I
all right.
actually also have Devon in one of my final three scenarios.
Okay.
I have a
Cool.
final three scenario that I am calling June, July, and August on the Men of Survivor Michigan calendar. So I have
Okay.
Devin, Brady, and Dylan.
Interesting. Okay, I like that.
This is just what would happen if they said, "What if the three hunkiest dudes?" No offense to Ben and Will and Austin, who I also love. But what happens if the three hunkiest dudes decided to go to the final three together?
That would be crazy. It would be like a brigade situation from
It
from Big
would be
Brother.
like a brigade situation. That's exactly what it would be. Just like, what if like these bro dudes just decided that they were just going to record all their confessionals shirtless while drinking beers and go to the final three together? It would be one of the most rewatched Survivor Michigan seasons of all time. You would do hits on YouTube. Also, at one point this week, we got Brady apologizing for doing all of his confessional shirtless. Um, I
Yeah,
think
who
I think I'm
who's
going to
upset
speak.
about that?
I think I'm going to speak on behalf of the fandom and go, we're good. Like there is no need for apologies there. So yeah, so that is my extremely hunky final three.
I like that. And they're all in the same tribe right now, so that could
See,
easily come to fruition. I think you're on to something there
I
for
think we're
sure.
manifesting it.
Okay, so this one is going to be maybe a little controversial.
Okay.
Now, Mazed and Confused, we're seeing a lot of twists, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
advantages. Something that I don't know has been talked about much is what if, and I think we've not really seen this much in College Survivor. Maybe I think the first season of Maryland, they had someone return, but what if the first 6 or 7 people voted out come back as a tribe and get to vote someone back into the game?
Yes.
And that would be Andrew. So my next
Yes.
final three scenario would be Andrew, Eliza, and Austin.
Yes. That is amazing. I would. It would be one of the all-time great Survivor moments.
100%. And I feel like Andrew would be someone who like no one would be mad at for coming back into the
Yes.
game. You know what I mean?
Totally agree.
Like I know that's a controversial thing with like Edge of Extinction and all
Yeah.
that, but I feel like he would be the one that we would give a pass to. Where if he comes back and makes it to the end, like he would totally deserve it. And because I'm insane and I run a bunch of scenarios, I thought about this final tribal being a tie between Andrew and Eliza, and then Austin
Mm-hmm.
having to break the tie between the two of them. I feel like that would be so dramatic. It would be, Austin would have to choose between like he pledged his allegiance to Eliza from the very beginning, and then
Mm-hmm.
also Andrew, didn't flip for him, and basically kind of got rocked out for not
Yeah.
flipping. I feel like that would just be an insane ending, and to see the three like super fans in the end would be incredible. So that was my kind of
I feel
dream
like
scenario.
I would cry a lot in that finale.
Oh,
Like if that were
100%.
really to happen, I think I would be very emotional. Like
Absolutely.
millennials versus Gen X levels of emotional at that. But I would love it.
Yeah.
Alrighty. My last one that I have, I think this would be three people that I would love to see go all the way just for their confessional prowess
Okay.
would be Ben, Jesse, and Dylan.
Oh, wow. I like that.
Just three people that, if their confessionals lasted the whole season, with Ben being so funny and quick and witty, and Jesse and the whiteboard being, and her being so funny and so sort of dry, and then Dylan's interjections for the whole season.
Hmm.
I feel like that would be just a perfect set of narrators for this season. So I think if
Absolutely.
you had to script it and say who are the three narrators we want going all the way, I'm going to pick Ben, Jesse, and Dylan as the wild card.
Yeah, I like that. That would be a really fun final tribal. And uh, obviously, if they're the final three, we, like you said, we would get them all season. And I think that would
Yes.
be perfect. So I definitely like that scenario. All right. And I have one more
Okay.
as well. So obviously, I was kind of thinking back to the first episode where everybody had to sort of get into groups of three. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought it would be really interesting if one of those three ended up in the final three. And on top of that, I feel like these three, it would probably be the most explosive final tribal that we could probably think of. But
Mm-hmm.
Ben, Will, and Emily P final three.
Oh, yes.
Could you imagine
Sign me up for that.
how intense that would be? I feel like they would all be throwing each other under the bus. I feel like there would be screaming, there would be maybe some crying. Like that would just be the fireworks would be going off for hours if they made it to the end.
I totally agree. I would love to see that. I mean, if just simply for, especially again, given the makeup of what this jury is going to be like, just for the back and forth with the jury on top of
Mm-hmm.
the back and forth with each other, so good. Would be so classic all
Yeah.
time.
And I think seeing three people who kind of just came together quickly, in that very first twist, seeing them all in the end, I think would be really cool. So
Totally agree.
that kind of rounded out my list.
All right, man, we did that was this is a really good, interesting list. I'm trying to think of which ones would be my favorite. It's hard not to go with that Ben, Will, Emily P final three. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I think it would be so entertaining, and three really good players too. So it would
Oh
be
yeah,
the game would be up in the air for all of them for sure.
totally agree. I think for me, it's between that and that Sabu Sabu Final Three with Andrew coming back from the Outcasts or Redemption Island or Edge of Extinction, whatever it is.
Yeah, that would be incredible to see that. And yeah, it would be again like an emotional tribal, like you said. I feel like, and clearly we're just not over Andrew being rocked out.
Yeah,
So if there's
it's
any
true.
possible way to get him back into the game, even if it's just a dream scenario, we're gonna have to play that out. So
Agreed. Alrighty, well, I think our work here is done.
awesome, it's
Yeah,
great.
this was fun. So, until we meet you next time, I'm sure the game will be totally different and up in the air once again next time you hear from us. But I'm Paul. This is Joe. We're the Power Ranking Guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.